Today, many trail systems are cutting their ATV and UTV trails between 50 and 60 inches wide. Motocross racers, sand duners, and now a growing number of trail riders can benefit from the improved handling and control of riding an ATV closer to 50 inches in width, rather than the traditional 45 to 46 inch width. Most motocross races allow a maximum width of 50 inches, and going wider generally has an adverse effect, causing you to lose front-end traction. If you're considering widening your ATV, the price can be a bit deterring. However, for most racers and recreational riders, this simply isn't necessary. Dave Herron worked at Legger Chassis Components, building ProTrax frames during the late 1980s and 90s. When the AMA instated their production frame rule for the Pro class, the demand for aftermarket frames was greatly reduced. At that time, Dave left Leggers to pursue his own company. JD Performance isn't a widely known company, keeping their advertising and sponsorship overhead down in an effort to keep their retail price low. JD Performance builds their products in-house in the USA. They construct their A-arms of TIG-welded 4130 chromoly, and they're available in various extended lengths to suit your needs. The arms come complete with ball joints, tie rods, and all of the necessary mounting hardware, including graphite-impregnated hard urethane bushings, which can be upgraded to needle bearings for a bit more. All of JD Performance A-arms feature their faster caster adjustment system, providing 3 different caster settings. You can move them back for high-speed desert, in the middle for all-around trail riding, or forward for faster turning on a motocross track. Adjusting caster takes place by moving the upper A-arm shims to the back, either side or front of the A-arm. The faster caster system offers less ability to fine-tune your caster. However, it is quick and doesn't require that you measure your caster settings. It works well enough that Can-Am started using this design on their DS450 ATVs. JD's arms also offer one of the easier camber adjustment designs. Standard shock, standard clearance A-arms retail for a modest $495, and just $105 more if you want long travel. JD Performance covers their A-arms with a lifetime manufacturer's warranty against defects. If you plow a tree or crash and wad one up, JD Performance will sell you a single replacement arm. If you have rebuildable front shocks, you may be able to have them modified to work with long travel A-arms. Check with your favorite suspension tuner or JD Performance if you aren't sure. If your rebuildable stock shocks can't be extended, you will have to run standard shock A-arms. If you have a machine with non-rebuildable front shocks, you will need to buy aftermarket shocks. Most shock builders charge the same price for standard or long travel shocks these days. With only a $105 price difference between JD Performance standard and long travel A-arms, you might as well opt for the long travel A-arms and shocks. Keep in mind that long travel has more to do with the length of the shock than the actual wheel travel, although the quality of the travel is generally better on a long travel shock. When we built our 400EX a few years back, many manufacturers were charging significantly different prices between standard and long travel front ends, so we opted to go with JD Performance standard shock A-arms. We went with +3 inch wider A-arms and switched from the 3+2 to 4+1 offset front wheels. This setup yields a machine that's 4 inches wider than stock at 49.5 inches wide, while the reduced wheel offset reduces steering effort and bump feedback to the steering. Since the 400EX features disposable front shocks, we went with PEP's limited mass reservoir-equipped front shocks featuring compression adjustment for $1,070. PEP charges the same amount for their shocks, whether you go with standard or long travel, so if we had this build to do all over again, we'd spend the extra $105 and opt for the long travel JD Performance arms. Since it's necessary to widen both ends of your ATV at the same time, we recycled the stock axle and installed a Tusk racing axle from Rocky Mountain ATV. The JD Performance A-arms bolted up flawlessly. The A-arms welds were clean and consistent, as we would expect from a fabricator with Dave's extensive experience. We like the motocross caster setting for tight tracks, while we sometimes switch to the middle wood setting for faster, more wide-open tracks. With the JD Performance A-arms and PEP limited mass shocks installed, we got exactly what we were looking for out of our machine's new front end. Cornering stability was dramatically improved. We could carry a lot more speed into, through, and out of turns. carrying more momentum through turns let us clear jumps that would have been nearly impossible on the less stable 45.5-inch wide stock machine. Off-road or in the sand dunes, the extra width would be a big asset both in turns and on side hills. The improved stability also comes in handy when you land a little crossed up on jumps. The combination of the JD Performance A-arms and PEP limited mass shocks yield 10.5 inches of suspension travel, all of the travel you need for motocross. The PEP shocks help keep the front end flat through corners and ate up the biggest hits we threw at them without bottoming hard. JD Performance builds a good product at a very reasonable price. We've been reluctant to use many lower priced A-arms in the past for fear of sacrificing quality of construction, combined with the fact that our test riders like to push the limits of both man and machine. Having inspected, installed, and ridden with JD Performance A-arms in the past, we wouldn't hesitate to use them or recommend them. For more information on JD Performance full line of chassis components, log on to jdperformance.net.